So today's a strange one. We're going to start off with this NASA astronaut getting quite triggered when asked about the flat Earth. We're then going to stay on with this same astronaut as she then discusses a certain procedure that takes place on a regular basis on the International Space Station, supposedly. The problem is when I entertain that by digging deeper, and I've already done that as I addressed what we're going to address several years ago. But seeing as this lady seemed to get so triggered, and it seems to be a common theme now with astronauts getting extremely triggered, or like the bouncing astronaut I highlighted recently, Butch, who suddenly retired. So it does seem like these astronauts are very much aware of the people's awakening, shall we say. And of course, it's stuff like I'm going to highlight that is becoming more and more obvious for people to see. Again, this is a good one. This is for all your engineers out there, all you people that want to solve a little mystery. And before I play the clips, fair use. I'm looking at several clips offering critique and looking at the design spec of certain things cited in these videos. And as a result, I'm coming up with conclusions based on logic, common sense and reason that there's an issue with the International Space Station. Surprise, surprise. So let's have a look.
I'm almost going to throw this one in the pile. What's my opinion on flat earthers? My opinion is they used to call themselves a global society of flat earthers. And they must not know what global means. But anyway, we're just going to put that one right down there.
The Earth definitely isn't flat.
The Earth definitely isn't flat. And we don't even have to go to space to know the Earth isn't flat. And when's the last time somebody fell off? And have you ever seen the turtle's head popping up out over the side of it now? Here we go, right.
So we'll put aside that ridiculous response there. We won't get emotionally involved in that. Clearly, the astronaut was emotionally involved in that question. Clearly, it's a sore point. So apparently the Earth is a globe because a gigantic turtle hasn't put its head up around the edge yet. That is where we're at right now. We've got supposedly space legends acting like disingenuous children. It's ridiculous. But let's continue because this is where it gets interesting.
Into this one. How do you use the loo in space? At first, very carefully. For, liquid waste, everybody the same. Big, long hose with this yellow funnel on the end of it, which I think is funny, the yellow funnel. It's just kind of, the engineers have a sense of humor as well. And we use the vacuum of space. We use vacuum to help us with this too. So it helps guide the fluid. So you take the cap off the funnel, you turn a little switch on, you hear this fan, and this vacuum starts working in the hose. And it's fun at first. I mean, it's a little messy at first, but you figure it out. It's so cool, again, how you figure out. I mean, you can be floating in any direction and do this. It's really pretty cool. All that liquid waste, that's all going into a containment system, and we actually recycle all of the liquid waste, a majority of that, into clean drinking water. Yeah, and as my friend...
Now, we're not really too interested in the liquid waste, number one. What we're interested in is the number two waste, okay? But we are going to cross-reference with the technology used with the number one waste, and it just exposes all of this. So anyway, let's continue.
And Don Pettit, who's still on the space station right now on another mission, always likes to say that yesterday's coffee becomes today's coffee.
Disgusting.
And then number two is a lot like camping. We have this can. I mean, it looks like just like a can with a lid on it. It does have a seat, but I don't think, like this little wooden seat for some reason, but I don't think anybody ever really uses this seat. You flip it open, and again, you've got to be properly aligned. You turn on a switch, and there's a fan and a vacuum that pulls the waste into the can. And then once that can is full...
So you turn on the button, there's a fan, essentially, which creates a vacuum, a sucking effect, and it pulls the waste into the can or into the bag, as you've got bags in the cans, haven't you? So let's just hear that again.
Properly aligned. You turn on a switch, and there's a fan and a vacuum that pulls the waste into the can. And then once that...
So there's a vacuum that pulls the waste, okay? We heard it from her. Bear with me. The wooden seat the NASA astronaut mentioned just now is the one on our screen. And quite rightly NASA have replaced that. It resembles to me a 1960s outhouse toilet. Not very space-like, so they've gone from the wooden seat to this one that we're more so familiar with. But just take note of the design here. Those holes inside the top rim, okay? And the old seat, which Nicole mentioned, has the same design feature, the holes in the top of the seat, okay? So you've gone from this wooden seat to this plastic seat, like I said, that most of us are familiar with. I'd never seen the wooden seat before. Yeah, it seems like they've tried to hide that one, and obviously for good reason. And this is where it gets silly, if you ask me.
Hello, and welcome to the toilet of the International Space Station. Let's say you're up here on ISS and you need to go to the restroom. You want to come to this cabin, and the first thing you want to do is grab this piece of equipment and turn this rotary switch 90 degrees to the open position. What that does is it turns on a fan, which creates a suction effect in this hose so that you can use this yellow element for your number one.
So there's a fan here inside this hose, or at the bottom of the hose here, that creates the suction to pull the number one waste down and away, okay?
For number two, the principle is actually exactly the same, suction.
For number two, the principle is exactly the same, suction.
We have a solid waste container here, and on top of it is this seat. And the solid waste container is connected via this hose to the same fan, so that, again, the same suction effect allows you to do your number two in weightlessness. I want to show you how it looks, but since we don't want any bad smells to come out, we're going to actually turn on the fan. It's going to be a little bit loud. There we go. Now you can lift the lid. There is this seat that sort of looks comfortable, but you don't really sit in weightlessness. So most of us actually prefer to lift this one as well and use directly the opening that goes into the bag. And in fact, there is a bag in there. It looks like this. And when we are done with our business, we close the bag and we push it down into the solid waste container. And then, of course, as a courtesy to the next person, we put a new fresh bag inside.
So I'm just going to come back. I'm going to pose a question for all the engineers out there and everyone watching this. How is it possible for number two's waste to be sucked into the bag if the bag is a separate entity from the fan, the suction system? How is the suction system able to suck the waste into the bag? Wouldn't it need the hose or the fan stroke suction system attached to the bottom of the bag? We're told it works on suction.
There is this seat that sort of looks comfortable, but you don't really sit in weightlessness. So most of us actually prefer to lift this one as well and use directly the opening that goes into the bag. And in fact, there is a bag in there.
See, by not using that top seat, you've essentially taken any chance and any hope the space fans had of the holes in that top seat being some sort of pushing system. And again, that doesn't fly because we're told it was a sucking system. So that wouldn't have worked anyway.
It looks like this. And when we are done with our business, we close the bag and we push it down into the solid waste container. And then, of course, as a courtesy to the next person, we put a new fresh bag inside. The solid waste container.
And we're just going to zoom in a little bit closer here, and just in case you're not getting the point here. So here's a better view of the seat down. We can see the bag in there. We can see these holes on the rim here. And the fact that astronauts don't use that has taken away any hope the space fans have got. Because essentially the only hope they've got would be air blowing out of those holes. But that's not what we've been told. We've been told it's a vacuum system. It sucks and pulls the waste down into, the bag or wherever the number one waste goes. And they don't even use that. They have the actual, the seat up. And they go direct, straight into the bag. So my question to every engineer and every person watching this, here we can see the bag's been taken away and stuffed down in the hole. But essentially the bag goes around the rim here. And the lady astronaut just told us they sit directly above it and go straight to the bag. But how does the vacuum system work? If you're going straight to the bag and there's no vacuum system in place to suck and do the job required to do if you guys are in a weightless environment. It doesn't work, does it? I highlighted this several years ago. It doesn't work from an engineering point of view. So it's another major fail here. And you can tell when these people are talking about the toilet anyway. You can just tell they're not familiar with it. It's just spiel. A story rather than relaying real experience. And of course, when you look at it a bit deeper and you look at the design, it exposes itself anyway. So any engineers out there, explain how the toilet is able to suck the number two waste directly into the bag without having a vacuum system in place there. If they're directly above that ring and that's where the bag is, doesn't work. It's that simple.